You know, we want to talk about sort of all things basketball. And Caitlin Clark, phenomenal run. Yeah. I saw her the other night, by the way. I saw her the other night in Indy after her, I think it was her second game or third game.
So, Lance, today we're going to be talking about something in the WNBA that we actually have to talk about now after this article got released. So basically, there is an article. It
was the first game against Liberty. They played Liberty Thursday, then they were back here in New York on Saturday. I saw her after the Thursday game, very briefly. And, you know, she was just talking about the quick turnaround, which I find to be insane.
That heavily implies that the Indiana Fever knew that Caitlin Clark they weren't going to let Caitlin Clark come back weeks ago. And because they just strung her along.
Caitlin Clark was supposed to be the WNBA's engine. She lit up arenas, shattered TV ratings, and had the Fever looking like real contenders. But the moment she announced she was done for the season, everything collapsed. Fast. Ratings fell nearly 70%, ticket prices dropped to single digits, and suddenly the playoffs looked like exhibitions. The big question isn't just what her injury means for Indiana, but what it means for the entire league. Could one player's absence be enough to derail years of momentum? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Imagine this. One player goes down and suddenly the entire league's numbers collapse. You don't see that in the NFL if Mahomes gets hurt, and you don't see it in the NBA if LeBron misses games. But in the WNBA, it happened right in front of us. The second Caitlin Clark was no longer on the court, the ratings didn't just fall slightly, they completely cratered. What should have been a strong playoff push turned into a test of whether the league could even stand on its own. Before her injury, Clark had been the biggest draw in women's basketball history. Everywhere she played, the atmosphere felt bigger.
They go through this season that starts basically in September. They have all their preseason practices, games. She does the tournament, gets the national championship game. And then, like, within a month,
they misled her and said, you know what, we're going to let you train. We're going to let you try to ramp up, even though we're going to rule you out anyway. No matter how close you get, we're going to rule you out anyway. And they were like apparently trying to encourage Caitlin to try to come back while also not letting her play.
She's playing in real WNBA games. There's no real off season for her. But the thing I wanted to bring up was just, I don't want to call it hatred, but
we have to actually talk about this because if the Indiana Fever, it seems like they knew they weren't going to let Caitlin Clark come back. So with knowing you're not going to let Caitlin Clark come back, you realistically know you're probably not going to do anything in the playoffs.
Indiana games were on the national schedule multiple times per week, and every arena she stepped into saw a surge in ticket sales. She wasn't just another rookie. She made Fever games feel like national events. Then came the announcement, and everything that had been building up came crashing down. Calling it a dip doesn't even describe it because what happened looked more like the ground giving way. Right after Clark's exit, the TV numbers were almost unrecognizable. Her team went from over 1 million people tuning in to a fraction of that. From 1.26 million viewers, the Fever suddenly had only around 400,000 watching their games. That's not casual attrition, that's a meltdown. And the most telling thing, it wasn't just Indiana fans who stopped caring. League-wide broadcasts saw their viewership nearly cut in half. Imagine that, half of the entire basketball audience disappearing practically overnight. It shows you that this wasn't about one city, it was the whole nation turning away once Clark was gone. And you can see the same freefall in ticket prices. Chicago went into overdrive when she was scheduled to play there, with average resale prices soaring above $80. But once news hit that Clark wasn't suiting up, you could find a seat for just $25. Washington was even more brutal. You could walk into a professional basketball game for only $1. That's not a healthy demand curve, that's collapse. A crowd that was ready to pay premium prices to see a rookie suddenly treated the games without her like they weren't worth spending on at all.
Like a dislike or vitriol coming her way towards older players. And look, I think we all experienced that to some degree when we first got in the NBA.
For sure.
Your opponents are not wrapping their arms around you.
So the smart thing would be to tank and get a good draft pick. But I don't believe this front office is incompetent. An incompetent front office gets to the playoffs, guaranteed loses in the first, guaranteed first round loss, gets to the playoffs.
I was the cocky white kid from Duke, right? You know, I feel like sometimes my teammates hated me. How did you process that? How did you go through that at a young age, coming into the NBA?
Rather than tanking. That's what an incompetent front office does. That's what the Chicago Bulls do. But like the Miami Heat, when people are saying the Miami Heat refuse to tank, the Miami Heat sometimes make the playoffs and people think they should tank it and they fuck about and make the finals.
Now think about the ripple effect. Fever had just upgraded arenas to handle all those extra fans. Merchandise was flying off the shelves with Clark's name printed on it. Sponsors had lined up specifically to attach themselves to her. When you lose the centerpiece of that kind of momentum, the investments don't just slow down. They start to look like huge overreaches. It's one thing to build marketing around your star, but it's another to put every piece of your growth strategy on one player, staying healthy all season. Here's the wildest part. Clark didn't only drive Indiana's visibility, she drove national sports coverage that no other WNBA player has consistently created. ESPN made her highlight plays daily material, NBA TV gave her extended coverage, and mainstream outlets suddenly treated the WNBA like front-page sports. Take one player out of that equation, and the spotlight faded across every platform. The impact was bigger than one franchise. She had been carrying the entire league's presence in the broader sports conversation. It makes you think, if the NFL goes a Sunday without Mahomes, the ratings don't nosedive. If LeBron sits out, the NBA might lose a storyline, but people still tune in. With Clark, a 70% ratings drop. That's not a normal superstar effect. That's a life support machine keeping the league relevant. She wasn't just valuable, she was holding the air supply. And let's not ignore how this happened.
Where the people could have been your teammates, could have been the people you were competing against. They weren't celebrating you.
No, not at all.
They wanted to kick your ass.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, my teammates for sure.
Get in as a low seed instead of tanking, but you always give them like a puncher's chance, like a Milwaukee, or like, I'm trying to think, years ago, Boston, when Boston got in on the play-in.
There's video evidence of my teammates basically saying like, he's not ready, or there's somebody playing this position, or we're not putting all our faith in the 18-year-old kid, or, you know, all this hype, we've been here, all this, you know, so.
After making the conference finals the year before, Miami, when they made the finals off the play-in, there's a load of these teams that are like on the bubble that you're like, in the NBA, they have a chance. When the Warriors made it through in the play-in one year.
Officials didn't protect her the way a league protects its top stars. Roughly 17% of all flagrant fouls this year are committed against her. That's a number you can't overlook. Fans saw it happening, analysts called it reckless, and it was clear that the WNBA failed to protect its biggest attraction. This wasn't some random accident. People believe it was preventable. Instead, the player who symbolized their future ended up sidelined. So when Clark announced she was finished for the season, the spark didn't flicker. It went out entirely. Ratings, tickets, merchandise, sponsorships, they all fell flat. What looked like organic growth now feels exposed as something built almost completely on one young star. Without her, all those gains evaporated in a matter of days. And that leads to the looming question. Can a professional league survive when one player makes or breaks the entire product? Or does this moment force the WNBA to rethink the way it builds its future? Here's the bottom line. Caitlin Clark going down didn't just wrap up a season. It exposed how much pressure the WNBA put on one person. Every gain the league made, every bump in tickets, ratings, and hype, all pointed back to her. Without that anchor, everything unraveled fast. And that's the real problem. Until the league protects players like her and creates multiple stars who fans will pay to see, this cycle repeats. So what do you think? Is this the wake-up call the WNBA needs? Or is it proof Clark is the single thread holding it together?